The pen feels heavier than it should. My hand hovers over the document, the tip barely an inch from the signature line. Around me, the law office hums with quiet efficiency. A phone rings somewhere down the hall. The air conditioning clicks on with a soft whir. "Mrs. Morrison," the lawyer says, leaning forward in his leather chair. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" I look up at him. His name is Richard Chen, and he's been asking me variations of this question for the past 40 minutes. He's younger than I expected, maybe 45, with silver threading through his dark hair at the temples. His expression is professional, but I can see the concern in his eyes. "I'm certain," I tell him. But even as I say it, my mind drifts back to 3 days ago, to the moment when everything changed. My husband Tom died 2 years ago last March. Heart attack at 63, sudden and cruel. We'd been married 38 years. The grief was like walking underwater, everything slow and muffled and impossibly heavy. What got me through those first impossible months was Mark. Mark is my grandson, my only grandson. Tom and I raised our daughter Sarah as a single parent after my husband's first wife left when Sarah was just 2. Sarah had Mark when she was 22, and honestly, she struggled. Postpartum depression. A boyfriend who disappeared the moment the pregnancy test showed positive. Financial problems. So Tom and I stepped in. We were there for midnight feedings, doctor's appointments, first day of kindergarten. We were the ones who taught Mark to ride a bike, to swim, to throw a baseball. When Tom died, Mark was there every day for a month. He'd come by after work, bring groceries, fix things around the house. He'd sit with me at the kitchen table and tell me about his day, about his life, about his dreams. He wanted to start a tech company. Something about data analytics for small businesses. I didn't understand most of it, but I understood the passion in his voice. "Grandma," he'd said one evening, 6 months after Tom's funeral. "I know this might not be the right time, but I wanted to tell you, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start my company." I'd been sorting through Tom's things, slowly working up the courage to clear out his closet. Mark sat across from me at the kitchen table, a mug of coffee between his hands. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I'd said, and I meant it. Tom had always said Mark had potential. Said he was smart, driven, going places. "I've been saving," Mark continued. "I've got about $20,000, but to really launch, to rent office space and hire a developer and get the marketing going, I need more like 75. He wasn't asking. Not then. He was just talking, the way he always did. But I could see it in his face. The hope. The barely concealed question. Tom had left me the house, paid off, and his life insurance. And his cars. Tom collected vintage automobiles. Nothing fancy. Nothing worth millions. But he had 5 of them stored in a garage across town. A 1967 Mustang. A 1972 Chevy Nova. A 1965 Thunderbird. A 1969 Camaro. And a 1963 Corvette Stingray. That last one was his baby. He'd spent 15 years restoring it himself, piece by piece. I'd been avoiding dealing with them. Every time I thought about selling them, it felt like erasing another piece of Tom. But looking at Mark that night, seeing the same determination in his eyes that I'd seen in Tom's, something shifted. "How much do you think you could sell 2 of your grandfather's cars for?" I asked. Mark's eyes widened. "Grandma, no, I wasn't suggesting. I know you weren't, but I am. Your grandfather would want this. He always believed in you." We sold the Mustang and the Nova. The Mustang went to a collector in Phoenix for $32,000. The Nova went to a dealer in Sacramento for $21,000. $53,000. I gave Mark $50,000 even. I kept $3,000 for the storage fees and paperwork. The day I handed him the check, Mark hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "I'm going to make you proud, Grandma. I promise. This is going to be something special." That was 8 months ago. For the first few months, I'd get updates, text messages about permits and website designs and meetings with potential clients. Then the updates slowed. Mark was busy, I told myself. Building a business takes time. Then 3 weeks ago, I got a text. "Grandma, we're doing it. Official launch party next Friday at 6 p.m. The Riverside Loft downtown. Really want you there. You're the reason this is happening. I cried when I read that message. Happy tears. Pride. This was what Tom's cars were meant for. This was legacy. I bought a new dress. Navy blue. Simple, but elegant. I got my hair done. I even splurged on new shoes. I wanted Mark to be proud to have me there. The morning of the party, Mark called. Hey, Grandma. Just wanted to confirm you're coming tonight. Of course, sweetheart. I wouldn't miss it for anything. Great. So, it's kind of a formal thing. Lots of investors and potential clients. Business casual at minimum. You know, nice. I have a lovely new dress, I said. Perfect. See you tonight. I arrived at the Riverside Loft at 5:45. I didn't want to be late. The building was industrial chic. All exposed brick and polished concrete. A sign in the lobby directed guests to the 3rd floor. When I stepped off the elevator, I froze. The space was packed. Easily 100 people, maybe more. Everyone in suits, cocktail dresses, jewelry that caught the light. Waiters circulated with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. A banner hung across the back wall. DataWise Analytics, transforming small business intelligence. My navy dress suddenly felt wrong. Too plain. Too simple. Too old lady at church. I spotted Mark immediately. He wore a charcoal grey suit that I'd never seen before, probably expensive, talking to a group of men and women near the bar. Next to him stood a woman I didn't recognize, blonde, late 20s, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than my car payment. She had her hand on Mark's arm in a way that suggested intimacy. I made my way toward them, weaving through clusters of conversations. Financial projections, market penetration, Series A funding. Words that meant nothing to me. Mark, I said when I reached him. He turned, and for just a second, something flickered across his face. Surprise, dismay. It vanished so quickly, I might have imagined it. Grandma! You made it. He gave me a quick, stiff hug. Everyone, this is my grandmother, Linda. The group nodded politely. The blonde woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We're just about to start the presentation, Mark said. Grandma, why don't you find a seat? There's some chairs set up near the back. Near the back. Of course, I said. I found a folding chair in the last row. Around me, people settled into seats, still talking, still networking. I felt invisible. The lights dimmed. Mark stepped onto a small stage area, the blonde woman beside him. Good evening, everyone, Mark said, his voice amplified by a microphone. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm Mark Hutchins, founder and CEO of DataWise Analytics, and this is Jessica Park, my co-founder and chief operating officer. Co-founder. So that was Jessica. For the next 20 minutes, Mark and Jessica gave a presentation. Slides flashed on a screen behind them. Graphs, charts. Testimonials from beta clients. They were polished, professional, confident. None of this would have been possible, Mark said near the end, without the incredible support of our early believers. I want to thank our angel investors, our advisors, and our mentors. To everyone who took a chance on us when we were just an idea, thank you. He started naming names, people I'd never heard of. The crowd applauded after each one. He never said my name. I sat there, hands folded in my lap, trying to understand. Maybe he wanted to keep families separate from business. Maybe he thought mentioning me would seem unprofessional. But $50,000, the cars Tom spent decades collecting, that wasn't nothing. After the presentation, people mingled again. I stood, thinking I'd go congratulate Mark, maybe meet Jessica properly. I found them by the dessert table. Jessica saw me approaching first. Mrs. Morrison, she said, her voice bright and professional. Thank you so much for coming. Of course. Mark, the presentation was wonderful. You should be very proud. Thanks, Grandma. He glanced around, like he was looking for someone more important to talk to. I'm so glad I could help make this happen, I said. Jessica's expression changed. Just slightly. Oh, you mean your gift? That was so generous of you. We really appreciated it. Gift. I wouldn't call $50,000 a gift, I said carefully. Jessica's smile turned sympathetic, patronizing. Of course not. Investment, gift. Whatever you want to call it. The point is, we're grateful. But you understand, this is a professional venture. We have a cap table, proper equity distribution, Your contribution was more of a family gesture than a business investment. Mark wouldn't meet my eyes. I see, I said. Anyway, Jessica continued, Mark and I should probably circulate. Lots of real investors to talk to. But please, enjoy the food. Have some champagne. Real investors. I stood there for a moment, watching them walk away. Mark's hand on the small of Jessica's back. Jessica laughing at something someone said, tossing her blonde hair. I set my untouched champagne glass on a nearby table and left. The drive home was a blur. I don't remember getting in my car. Don't remember the route I took. I just remember sitting in my driveway, staring at my house, Tom's house, our house, and feeling something crack open inside my chest. I went to bed early. Didn't eat dinner. Didn't call anyone. Just lay in the dark, trying to make sense of what had happened. My phone woke me at 7:30 the next morning. Mark's name on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but habit, or hope, or something else, made me reach for it. Hello? Grandma! Good morning. Sorry if I'm calling too early. His voice was cheerful. Easy, like nothing had happened. I'm awake, I said. Great. Hey, I wanted to talk to you about something. Actually, I need to ask you a favor. A favor. The party last night generated a lot of interest, he continued. We've got 3 companies ready to sign contracts, which is amazing. But to really scale up, to hire the team we need and expand operations, we need more capital. We're talking to banks about a business loan, but they want collateral. I sat up in bed, already knowing where this was going. Your house is paid off, right? Mark said. I was thinking, if you could co-sign the loan and put up the house as collateral, just as a formality, it would really help us out. We're looking at about $200,000. The business is solid, Grandma. The loan will get paid back, no problem. But having that security would help us get better terms. $200,000. My house. Mark, I said slowly. About last night. Why didn't you mention me in your speech? A pause. What do you mean? You thanked your investors. You didn't mention me. Grandma, that was a business event. I didn't think you'd want me to make a big deal about family stuff in front of all those people. Jessica called my $50,000 a gift. She said I wasn't a real investor. Another pause, longer this time. Jessica doesn't always phrase things the best way. What she meant was, you're not on the cap table because we kept your investment informal, family thing, you know. But obviously, we appreciate everything you've done. And now you want my house. Not want, need, just temporarily, as collateral. You wouldn't be giving up anything. It's just paperwork. I closed my eyes. Let me think about it. Of course. Take your time. But the bank needs an answer by next week. So if you could let me know in the next couple days, that would be great. Love you. Grandma. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there in bed, phone in my hand, Tom's face smiling at me from the photo on my nightstand. What would Tom say? Tom, who worked 2 jobs to pay off this house. Tom, who saved for years to buy each one of those cars. Tom, who taught Mark to be honest, to be responsible, to treat people with respect. I thought about calling Sarah, Mark's mother. But Sarah had always been soft on Mark, always made excuses. Besides, she was dealing with her own problems, a messy divorce, money troubles. I didn't want to burden her. Instead, I called someone else. Helen Granger had been my friend for 32 years. We met at a PTA meeting when our kids were in elementary school together. She was practical, no nonsense, and had seen me through Tom's death with a strength I couldn't have managed alone. Linda, everything okay? I told her everything. The cars, the money, the party, the phone call. When I finished, Helen was silent for a long moment. You need to talk to a lawyer, she finally said. I don't want to make this a legal thing. He's my grandson. Linda, he wants you to risk your house. After treating you like that. You need professional advice. My brother's son is a lawyer, does business stuff. Let me get you his number. That's how I ended up in Richard Chen's office 3 days later. Walk me through this again, Richard said, pen poised over his notepad. You gave your grandson $50,000 8 months ago. No contract, no formal agreement. It was family, I said. I trusted him. Richard nodded, not judging. And now he wants you to co-sign a $200,000 loan using your house as collateral. He says it's just a formality. Mrs. Morrison, I need to be direct with you. If you co-sign that loan and the business fails, you lose your house. It doesn't matter that you're not part of the business. It doesn't matter that you already gave him money. If they default, the bank takes your house. I knew this. Somewhere in my rational brain, I knew this. But hearing it said out loud, in this office, made it real. What else can you tell me about the business? Richard asked. Has Mark shown you financial statements? Business plans? No. He just told me things were going well. And this Jessica Park, his co-founder, how long has he known her? I don't know. He never mentioned her until the party. Richard set down his pen. Mrs. Morrison, would you like me to look into this business? Do some due diligence? Before you make any decisions, can you do that? I can access public business records. See what's been filed with the state. It won't be a complete picture, but it might give you some information. I agreed. 2 days later, Richard called me back to his office. The news wasn't good. DataWise Analytics was incorporated 9 months ago, Richard said, sliding documents across the desk to me. Mark Hutchins and Jessica Park are listed as co-founders, equal partners. The business address is a P.O. box. No actual office space leased under the company name, but the party was at the Riverside Loft, I said. Anyone can rent a venue for an event. That doesn't mean they operate out of there. He pulled out another document. This is more concerning. I found a filed notice of intent to dissolve the business. It was filed 6 weeks ago, then withdrawn a week later. What does that mean? It means someone, probably both of them, wanted to shut down the company. Then they changed their minds, or something changed. My stomach tightened. There's more, Richard said. I have a friend who works in venture capital. I asked him to make some discreet inquiries. None of the people Mark thanked at the party actually invested in DataWise. Some of them don't even exist. The business names were fabricated. The room tilted. What? I think your grandson staged that entire event. The investors, the contracts, all of it. I think the business is failing. Or failed. And he needs your house to cover debts. But why would he? I couldn't finish the sentence. Richard's expression was kind, but firm. Mrs. Morrison, I think you're being manipulated. I think this young woman, Jessica, may be influencing your grandson, or they're in it together. Either way, if you co-sign that loan, I believe you'll lose your house. I felt tears building behind my eyes, fought them back. What should I do? That's entirely up to you. But if you're asking for my legal advice, don't sign anything. Cut contact, protect your assets. He's my grandson. I know, and I'm sorry, but he's not acting like your grandson right now. I left Richard's office with a folder of documents and a plan I never thought I'd need. That evening, Mark called again. Hey Grandma, just checking in. Have you thought about the loan? I was sitting at my kitchen table, the folder open in front of me. I have. Great. I knew you'd come through. When can you come downtown to sign the paperwork? I'm not signing anything, Mark. Silence. Then, what? I had a lawyer look into your business. I know about the notice of dissolution. I know the investors at your party weren't real. I know the business is failing. His voice changed, got harder. You had me investigated. I protected myself. There's a difference. I can't believe this. After everything I've done for you, I was there when Grandpa died. I helped you through that. And I gave you $50,000, Mark, from your grandfather's cars he spent his life collecting. That was a gift? No, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my own voice. It was an investment. In you. In your future. And you thanked me by pretending I didn't exist and asking me to risk my home. The business isn't failing. Your lawyer doesn't know what he's talking about. Then show me the financial statements. Show me the contracts you said you had. Show me proof. More silence. I thought you believed in me, Mark finally said, his voice cracked. I thought you wanted me to succeed. That hurt. God, that hurt. I do want you to succeed, Mark, but not like this. Not by taking advantage of family. Not by lying. Jessica said you'd be like this. Said you'd turn on me. Jessica, of course. I'm not turning on you. I'm protecting myself. If the business is as solid as you say, you don't need my house. You know what? Forget it. Keep your house. Keep everything. I don't need you. He hung up. I sat there, phone in my hand, crying for the first time since Tom's funeral, crying for the little boy who used to fall asleep on my couch watching cartoons, crying for the teenager who helped Tom restore the Corvette, crying for the man I thought Mark would become. 3 days passed. No contact from Mark. I told myself it was better this way, cleaner. Then Helen called. Linda, I just saw something online about Mark's business. She sent me a link, a local news article. Local tech startup, under investigation for wire fraud. My hands shook as I read. DataWise Analytics, the article said, was being investigated by the State Attorney General's office. Multiple individuals had come forward claiming they'd invested money in the company based on false information. The total amount in question was over $300,000. Mark Hutchins and Jessica Park were named as principals of the company. There was a photo. Mark and Jessica outside what looked like a courthouse, both in sunglasses, both looking grim. I called Richard Chen. I saw, he said before I could speak. I'm sorry. I didn't want to be right about this. What happens now? That depends on a lot of things. If the investigation leads to charges, if there's a trial, these things take time. Could he go to jail? Possibly. If they can prove fraud, yes. I felt sick. 2 weeks later, Mark showed up at my house. I opened the door to find him standing on my porch. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, unshaven. His clothes rumpled. Grandma, he said, I need to talk to you. Every instinct told me to close the door, but he was my grandson, so I let him in. We sat in the living room, the same room where he'd told me about his business dreams, where Tom used to sit in his recliner and read the Sunday paper. I'm sorry, Mark said, for everything, for how I treated you at the party, for asking for the house, for all of it. Tell me the truth, I said. All of it. And he did. Jessica had been his girlfriend for 2 years. I'd never met her because, he admitted, he knew I wouldn't approve. She had ideas, big plans. The business had been her concept. She convinced him they could make millions if they just played it right. We got in over our heads, Mark said. Borrowed money from people, promised returns we couldn't deliver. Jessica said we could fix it if we got a big loan, used it to actually build what we'd promised, but we needed collateral. My house. I know how it sounds, but I thought if we could just get one more chance. What about the 50,000, Mark? What happened to that? He looked away. Gone. Rent, salaries, the party. Jessica said we had to look successful to attract real investors. And the investigation? They're saying we committed fraud. Jessica's lawyer says we might be able to plead down to something lesser if we cooperate. But I don't know. I'm so scared, Grandma. He was crying now. Real tears. And despite everything, my heart broke for him. What about Jessica? I asked. She left, moved to Colorado, left me to deal with this alone. Of course she did. Mark, I said gently. You need to tell the truth. To the investigators. To whoever asks. You made mistakes. But lying now will only make it worse. I know. I'm sorry I disappointed you. Sorry I disappointed Grandpa. We sat in silence for a while. I can't help you with money, I finally said. I can't bail you out or pay for lawyers or make this go away. I know, but I love you. You're my grandson. And when this is over, when you've faced the consequences and made things right, I'll still be here. He hugged me. A real hug. Not the stiff, performative one from the party. After he left, I sat in Tom's chair and thought about legacies. Tom left me cars. Physical things, beautiful things, valuable things. But the real legacy was the lesson. You earn what you have. You treat people with honesty. You take responsibility for your mistakes. Mark had forgotten that. Or maybe no one had taught him clearly enough. That's when I made my decision. I went back to Richard Chen's office. I want to sell the rest of Tom's cars, I told him. The Thunderbird, the Camaro, and the Corvette. Are you sure? I'm sure, and I want to invest the money. But not in Mark's business, and not in anything risky. I want to invest in something good, something that helps people. Richard nodded. I might have some ideas. Over the next few months, we sold the cars. The Corvette alone brought in $92,000. A collector from Texas bought it, promised to keep it in pristine condition. With Richard's help, I invested the money in a fund that supported women entrepreneurs. Small business loans, mentorship programs, educational resources, real investments, with real returns, helping real people. Mark was charged with wire fraud. His lawyer negotiated a plea deal. No jail time, but 3 years probation, restitution payments, and community service. He moved back in with Sarah, got a job at a retail store, started paying back the people he'd defrauded. He called me once a month, short conversations, awkward at first. But slowly, carefully, we're rebuilding something. Jessica was charged separately. Last I heard, she was fighting extradition from Colorado. 6 months after that night in Richard's office, I got a letter from the Women's Entrepreneurship Fund. One of the businesses they'd helped with my investment had just landed a major contract. My share of the returns was $8,000. I put the check on my refrigerator, held up by a magnet shaped like a vintage car. That night, I sat down and wrote a letter, not to mail, just to write, to Tom. I sold your cars, I wrote, all of them. I know you loved them, especially the Corvette, but you loved Mark more. And I hope, you'd understand what I did. I tried to help him by giving him money. That didn't work, so I'm helping him by not giving him more. I'm helping him by letting him learn to stand on his own. That's harder, but I think it's right. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer, next to Tom's watch and his wedding ring. Mark came for dinner last week, brought groceries, cooked spaghetti. We ate at the kitchen table and talked about his job, his therapy sessions, his plans for the future. I'm thinking about going back to school, he said. Maybe business management, but done right this time. Learn from someone who actually knows what they're doing. I think that sounds wonderful, I said. As he was leaving, he paused at the door. Grandma, thank you for not giving up on me, even when I deserved it. You're my grandson, I said simply. That doesn't change. After he left, I stood at the window and watched his car disappear down the street. I thought about the woman at that party, the one in the navy dress who felt invisible, who didn't know if she had the strength to do what needed to be done. I hope she knows now. Sometimes love means saying yes. Sometimes it means writing a check or making a sacrifice or giving everything you have. But sometimes love means saying no, means protecting boundaries, means letting someone you love face consequences so they can learn to be better. Tom taught me that, not with his cars, but with his life, with the way he worked, the way he saved, the way he built something solid and true. That's the real legacy. Not the money, not the property, not the things. The lesson. The example. The strength to do what's right, even when it breaks your heart. I invested in Mark's dream. He lost it. Now he's learning to invest in something more important, his own integrity. And that's worth more than all the vintage cars in the world.